Chapter 10. Cora. Cora found herself in Elle's hotel room, surrounded by the other Ramsley women who were discussing relationships and the upcoming nuptials. While Cora liked being invited with the group, she found it a little awkward. Despite being the first married into the family, Cora didn't know the rest of the members beyond her husband Nate's immediate family very well. She had met Anne a few times when Anne was still Michael's secretary and had taken a liking to her. Plus, she had gone to the previous Ramsley weddings. Beyond that, Cora had not had much interaction with the ladies beside her sister-in-law, Addison. She supposed now was her chance to remedy the situation and to get to know all of the women, including the newer ones. It was a large group, reflected Cora as she surveyed the busy room. Almost a dozen women were in groups discussing various topics. Drinks and snacks had made their way in from room service. They were waiting for Kelly to come out of the washroom in her dress. Apparently there was an issue with the fit, and Kelly had hoped to wear it to the wedding tomorrow. While she had a backup dress along, it wasn't what she preferred. Of course, the women had offered to help solve the issue if they could. Cora knew she wouldn't be providing much help. She had no experience with dress alterations. Dragging her attention back to the conversation at hand, Cora noted that the group were discussing her brother-in-law, Ben. "Are you and Ben dating?" wondered Addison as she eyed the girl Ben had brought to the wedding. "No," smiled Kitty. "We've been friends for 6 years or so. He's great, but we aren't dating." "He brought you to a family event," suggested Elle as she munched on a pastry. "Perhaps both of you are working towards being something more? I haven't heard he was dating anyone. Have you noticed he was interested in someone?" "Not at the moment," shrugged Kitty. "Ben hasn't mentioned anyone in particular." "Too bad," mused Addison. "Ben is my favorite brother." "So there's no chemistry between the two of you?" questioned Paget. "I thought I saw something when the two of you were at dinner. A bit of a spark." "Chemistry is important. It's hard to see yourself in a relationship with someone unless there are sparks," noted Kitty. "However, not with Ben." "Sparks can be dangerous," murmured Cora. Involuntarily, she looked at the medical brace on her wrist. Sometimes sparks could burn. It might be better to be friends that grow slowly into love. "You had a love match," noted Anne with a smile. "I remember your wedding. It was beautiful." "It was beautiful," echoed Cora. It had been a love match on her part. Cora had been dangerously in love, and so very inexperienced. Foolish as well. "I loved Nate very much." "Oh, I'm sorry." A sympathetic Anne laid a hand on Cora's arm. "Perhaps you don't want to speak about it, with Nate being gone so recently?" "It's fine." Cora gave Anne an unfelt smile. Privately she wondered what these ladies would think if they had only known what had really happened the day Nate died. An involuntary shiver ran through her. It was best not to remember. Especially the visit from Agent Kepler this afternoon. His very presence had put a pit in her stomach. Somehow, Cora had felt the guilt hard over what had happened to Nate, when she really shouldn't feel any guilt at all. Nate had died. It was an accident, a heart attack. End of story. Cora wasn't going to hash out the details, especially when she had changed a few of them to protect the reputation of the Ramsley family. She had her son's future to think about, and Cora didn't want anything to mar their lives. It had been such a surprise when Agent Kepler had knocked on her hotel door. Cora had only briefly heard Nate grumbling about how the FBI agent had been poking his nose into the family business. Nate had not been amused by Kepler's intrusion, or his father Oscar's way of handling the situation. Cora had tried to avoid the subject entirely, as all it did was upset Nate. When Nate was upset, it was better not to be nearby. Now Cora wished she had listened a little more to her husband's ramblings about the FBI agent. She might have been better prepared for the encounter. Cora blindly looked out at the scenic view of the city from the window as her thoughts turned inward. Cora turned her attention from slicking down Oliver's stubborn hair to the door as she heard the quick, authoritative rap. She wasn't expecting anything from room service, and the boys were going to meet Elle's sons before heading down to their own activities. Both of you can play video games for another 10 minutes, then I'll drop you off at Elle and Noah's room to meet with the other boys. Oliver promptly left for the adjoining room, but Nick lingered, curious about who might be at the door. Go, quietly insisted Cora. Nicholas rolled his eyes before stepping through the open doorway to the adjoining room. Cora noted her son almost closed the door, leaving it open just a crack. She had little doubt he was listening on the other side. Nick, her junior protector. She wished he didn't feel the need. Cora sighed as she undid the lock and clasp, opening the door to find herself faced with a stranger. Mrs. Nathaniel Ramsley? An insincere smile graced his face as his cold blue eyes gave her a quick once-over. Cora Ramsley? Yes, hesitantly replied Cora. Can I help you? Agent Bill Kepler, the man stated, flashing her an identification badge. Federal Bureau of Investigation. I would like to ask you a few questions about your husband's death. This really isn't the time, hedged Cora. She tried to sound unassuming and failed. We're due to be at a family function soon. Besides, I've already spoken to the police. Any information you need, they would have. I would much rather talk to you personally, he insisted. I promise not to take too much of your time. If I could come in? Cora was conscious of Nick still listening. She stepped into the hall, firmly shutting the door behind her. What would you like to know? My understanding is Nathaniel died of a heart attack while running. Agent Kepler pulled out a recording device, switching it on. You don't mind if I record this for my documents? I suppose, reluctantly agreed Cora, eyeing the small device. Pulling in a bracing breath, she forced herself to meet the flat, icy stare of the man in front of her. Yes, Nate was jogging. The hospital said his heart gave out on him. Yet he was a marathon runner. There was no indication of any heart issues on his past physicals, noted Kepler. Was Mr. Ramsley aware of these health deficiencies? Should he have been running? Nate had rescheduled his last physical, responded Cora. I'm certain if he'd gone, the doctor might have known about Nate's heart. As it was, we weren't aware there was any problems with my husband's health. Was he on any medications? Questioned Kepler. No, he was very healthy, replied Cora. Nate had been a health junkie. He jogged, worked out at the gym, had supplements every morning, and ate only the best of everything. Except for his heart, interjected the FBI agent. I suppose, agreed Cora. Uncomfortable, she checked her watch. I'm sorry, there isn't much time. Just a few more questions. Kepler's eyes regarded her braced wrist. What happened to your hand? I fell. Cora forced herself to keep her gaze steady with Kepler's shrewd eyes as she spoke the lie. When I found Nate, I fell and fractured my wrist. If you say so. He didn't look like he believed her. You were the one to find your husband? Yes, nodded Cora. I was going to run some errands. Groceries, the dry cleaner, stopped by the flower store to send a gift to a sick friend. The boys had a dentist appointment as well. I took the car. As I was driving, I found Nate laying in the middle of the road. Did he have a pulse? Asked Kepler. No, whispered Cora. A shiver ran through her. She tried not to remember, tried not to see Nate, pale, eyes glassy and lifeless. Drawing in a bracing breath, Cora gathered her thoughts. There was an FBI agent asking her questions. She couldn't afford to mess up. I called the paramedics, but there was nothing to be done by the time they arrived. Kepler studied her face, his brows drawing down. Did you try CPR? I'm afraid I was useless, shrugged Cora, blinking back tears. With a broken wrist, and I just couldn't seem to remember what to do. I only took first aid in class in college, which was so long ago. I wish I had paid more attention.
Who were the flowers for?
He asked suddenly. Excuse me? Cora blinked, confused.
The flowers for your sick friend? Who was the friend?
Kepler's voice was sharp. Cora hesitated, casting around her brain for a plausible answer. No one had ever asked her who the ill friend had been before. Olivia Fellsworth. She had been unwell. Her MS was flaring up. Thankfully, it was true, and Cora had sent flowers to her a few days after the funeral, so even if the FBI agent checked that small detail, he wouldn't find anything out of the ordinary.
Mrs. Ramsley, the FBI has chosen to exhume the body of Nathaniel Ramsley,
spoke Kepler in a brisk tone. What? Why? A stunned Cora asked.
I have obtained a warrant for an autopsy, Agent Kepler informed her. There'll be a full toxicology report done. Is there anything I should know?
Cora tried to think about any reason he might do this, why the FBI would want to look further into Nate's death, and came up empty. She shook her head with disbelief. I don't believe so.
Do you know who killed your husband? Demanded Kepler.
Astonished, Cora could barely answer. I don't know what you mean.
I believe his death was a murder.
Kepler took a step forward, crowding Cora, invading her personal space. No. Cora flattened herself against the door, her good hand searching for the knob behind her. It wouldn't open. She had not inserted the room key. Nate had a heart attack. It was an accident, nothing more.
The autopsy will tell us otherwise, a harsh Kepler told her. Who wanted Nate Ramsley dead?
I think you should leave. Cora tried to gather her wits about her. He was standing far too close for her liking. You can talk to my lawyer.
You mean Nate's lawyer?
Kepler narrowed his eyes.
One last question. Why hasn't the reading of the will happened?
Excuse me? Cora blinked, trying to follow the conversation.
Usually within a few weeks of the death, the will is formally read, stated Kepler. Why hasn't this been done?
I don't know. Suddenly, Cora wondered the same. It had been nearly a month since Nate's passing. Garrett is the executor. Perhaps you should ask him.
I certainly will,
nodded Kepler. He clicked a button on the recorder, shutting it off.
I will also be talking to you later.
Cora chose not to reply. With a satisfied look, Agent Kepler strode down the hall. Cora waited until he had rounded a corner before sagging against the door from relief that he was gone. What did he know which she didn't? Why did Kepler think Nate had been murdered? What would he do if he found out Cora had plenty of motive for wanting her husband gone? Cora became aware of a prolonged silence. The ladies were looking at her, expecting a response of some sort. Obviously, someone had commented or asked a question. A little embarrassed, she cleared her throat. My apologies. My thoughts were elsewhere. Did someone ask something of me? We were just commenting how Oliver and Nick seemed to be enjoying the weekend with their cousins. A concerned Paget tried to smooth over the moment. Yes, quickly agreed Cora with a feeling of relief. They certainly are. She really needed to pay better attention to the conversation, resolved Cora. She watched as the ladies took turns trying to fix Kelly's dress, which she had intended to wear to the wedding tomorrow. I bought it just a month ago, sighed Kelly, sliding a hand over her distended abdomen while trying to straighten the bodice of the dress with her other hand. It has these side panels that are supposed to expand. That way I could wear it pre- or post-birth. Please tell me I haven't grown out of it already. It's a smart idea, observed Paget as she sank onto the bed to sit beside Anne. I wish I had bought dresses like that when I had Morgan and Ryder. It would be nice to be able to wear maternity clothes throughout the pregnancy rather than in stages, mentioned Elle. She gave a jerk on the fabric liner. Kelly, I really don't know what to say. There must be some trick to make this bigger. I can feel the double fabric folded in there. Please, let me have a look, asked a hesitant Adriana. She and her mother had been invited to the gathering of all the women in Elle's hotel room. They had been mostly quiet observers, as everyone greeted each other and struck up conversations. After a few attempts to get to know the shy Adriana, the topic had shifted from who Marshall's bride could be, then to Kelly's dress not fitting correctly. Adriana had watched as several of the women tugged on the very pregnant Kelly's dress without success. The panel wouldn't open, and it was too tight to zip up at the back. Finally, her mother had said she should try. At least, they both had sewing experience. Please do, invited Kelly warmly. Otherwise, I might need to go to the wedding in my nightgown. Adriana had an uncertain smile as she began to inspect the dress. It was easy to see that there was a panel on each side that was supposed to open and give a few extra needed inches for the expanding abdomen of expectant mothers. However, it didn't appear to be zipped, clipped, or snapped into place. Adriana frowned as her fingers explored. It was sewn. No wonder no one had been able to force it open. There weren't many stitches, but they were of good quality. Adriana asked her mother in their native tongue to grab the pair of sewing snips from their hotel room. Is something wrong? Asked Kelly, looking in concern to Adriana. Nothing is wrong. I asked for... Adriana searched in her mind for the appropriate English word. Scissors? To cut the strings with. Is it sewn in? Questioned Anne. That is inconvenient. What if you want to use the dress again and need the panel back to its original position? There can be snaps sewn in later, offered Adriana. It might be difficult, though, with the folds of the fabric. They didn't tell me that, frowned Kelly as she smoothed the fabric over her stomach with a wince. Are you having contractions? Questioned Elle sharply. No, laughed Kelly. Just a twinge. You know how it is. Jackson is dropped and ready to start the party, but hasn't decided to arrive yet. Bentley was a week or so overdue, so I'm not worried. What did your doctor say? Questioned Sterling. Proceed with the utmost caution, grinned Kelly. Mostly I'm supposed to rest whenever I can. Honestly, I don't feel like resting at all. I have an enormous amount of energy to get rid of. Lucky you, said Anne a little enviously. Ever since I was pregnant with the triplets, I have zero energy. It will get better, assured Elle. Once they get past the terrible twos, you'll finally be able to get back to normal. I found it was preschool when I finally returned to some semblance of normal, a rueful Cora said. It was a delight to have part of my day back, no matter how much I love my boys. Are you all happy being moms? Questioned a curious Addison. Oh, I never meant to say I don't love being a mom, quickly clarified Anne. My girls are wonderful, and Michael is such a help. I cannot imagine life without them. I love my kids, smiled Elle, and to think Noah thought we would have just two. Paget laughed. Max is trying to convince me to have one or two more. Are you going to? Questioned Elle. I think Morgan and Ryder are enough trouble for us to manage, smiled Paget. While Max feeds on the chaos, we are good. Plus, I'm enjoying being back to full time on my podcast. I suppose having children does interfere with a career, noted a frowning Addison. Then again, I think it would be worth it. You don't have to worry about babies and marriage for a while, replied Cora. Are you even dating anyone? No, not at the moment. Addison gave an uncomfortable smile. I'm always busy with the hotels. It seems like I don't get much of a chance to meet anyone. Sometimes it happens when you least expect it, advised Elle. Wait for someone special. You're young yet. It will happen. Addison gave a nod and picked a piece of lint off her skirt. What about you, Adriana? Wondered Paget. How do you like Parker? I understand you haven't known each other very long. Adriana paused in accepting the pair of sewing snips from her mother, who had just returned. Oh, I think very well of Parker. He's very nice to me. Cora noticed the delicate blush that happened when Adriana replied. It was obvious the young woman liked her groom. "You must be very excited for tomorrow." "Yes," a shy Adriana replied before concentrating on freeing the panels on Kelly's dress. Within moments, the fabric gave way, and Kelly was able to have the back zipped. "Thank you!" A happy Kelly gave Adriana a hug. "You're a lifesaver." "You're welcome," softly spoke Adriana. "I'm glad to help." Cora sincerely hoped Parker would value his sweet bride. She was the type of girl who would either flourish under a man's attention or be diminished by it. Cora tried to ignore the feeling of dread in her stomach. Her own experience of marriage wasn't an indication of how Adriana and Parker's marriage would be. All she could do was hope for the best for the couple. Cora pulled her attention back to the conversation and tried to enjoy the evening. Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Wedding, Book 10 of the Ramsley Brothers series. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel. You can hit the bell so that you won't miss any future chapters that are being dropped. Thank you and happy listening.